For nearly 3,000 years, this story has served as the absolute blueprint for Western fantasy. Homer's epic poem, the Odyssey, established the fundamental mechanics of the hero's journey. When Hollywood adapts ancient myths of this scale, the default strategy relies on computer-generated spectacle. Studios typically bank on blindingly shiny armor, massive green screen battles, and overt displays of supernatural magic. Christopher Nolan operates on a different frequency. His directorial reputation is rooted in strict practical realism, treating every subject as a physical, historical event. So when he announced he was directing a mythological epic, a story featuring 6-headed sea monsters, witches, and giant one-eyed men, the film industry was skeptical about how his hyper-realistic style could translate. That skepticism evaporated when the review embargo lifted. The film secured a 97% verified audience score and drew enthusiastic endorsements from industry veterans like Tom Cruise. This chart shows how that critical consensus is translating to the box office. We are looking at an opening weekend projection of $95 million, a figure that dwarfs the historical averages for ancient world epics. Nolan's success suggests a significant shift in audience expectations. Viewers are actively seeking out films that discard the safety of established fantasy tropes in favor of complex structural risks. The visual language of this film rejects glossy sets. Instead, the production moved to actual ancient stone ruins, establishing a tactile reality that grounds the narrative from the very first frame. Within that grounded setting, Nolan dismantles standard cinematic hero worship. Odysseus is the king of Ithaca and a legendary warrior, but the film strips away any sense of invincibility. Matt Damon plays him as an exhausted, desperate man trying to navigate his way back home. He makes honest, catastrophic mistakes that cost his crew dearly, making his journey feel tangibly human. To build the emotional core of the film, the intense loyalty between Odysseus and his wife Penelope, the script pulls from far beyond Greek borders. Nolan drew structural parallels from the ancient Indian epic, the Ramayana. He adopted the framing of the Sita Swayamvaram, a famous bow and arrow sequence, and mirrored it in the youth of Odysseus and Penelope. This specific narrative framework defines Penelope as a fiercely independent ruler who preserves her throne through political and personal grit while her husband is lost at sea. By anchoring a Western myth in human frailty and global cultural touchstones, the narrative forces the viewer to care about the characters first. Once that emotional reality is established, the fantastical stakes feel earned. That commitment to reality extends into the film's logistics. Instead of acting in front of a green screen, the cast and crew built physical ships and filmed sequences directly on the open ocean and real coastlines. These legendary figures appear as instruments of psychological horror, stripping away the comfort of the fantasy genre to focus on the traumatic impact. These creatures inflict visceral trauma on the crew. The resulting nightmare sequences secured an R rating for the release. We see this stark design employed in the Cyclops cave sequence. The scale and dread are built to maximize audience terror. This methodical approach does create friction. The first 2 acts unfold at a very leisurely pace, and the cycle of landing on an island and facing a monster starts to feel monotonous. The film also struggles with specific directorial quirks. Several sequences set inside caves and lower decks are lit so dark that it becomes difficult to follow the action on screen. And when the violence spills over into a third-act melee in the palace, the camera work relies on a chaotic, shaky cam style that blurs much of the hand-to-hand combat. Yet those mechanical frustrations barely register against the larger picture. The overarching atmospheric tension and the effective horror elements ensure the audience remains locked in. The deliberate world-building of the first 2 acts detonates in the final hour. The pacing accelerates as every geographic and emotional thread converges into a devastating climax. This acceleration is driven by Ludwig Göransson's intricate score. The music swells alongside the action, elevating the final sequences into a transcendent cinematic experience. The finale is anchored by sharp work from the supporting cast. Robert Pattinson delivers a remarkably detestable villain, while Tom Holland provides the emotional weight the climax demands. Combining a dense ensemble cast with the physical scale of the ships and island fortresses echoes the mid-century Hollywood epics. It carries the physical weight of a production like Ben-Hur or Cleopatra. By taking an ancient story filled with gods and magic and treating it with the practical respect usually reserved for a historical biopic, Nolan has forged a unique category of filmmaking. The Odyssey demonstrates that high-concept, practical filmmaking can still command a massive, synchronized audience, justifying the continued existence of the large-format theatrical experience.